Good morning, Panthers. I am so excited to keep reading you our book, The Wild Robot Escapes by Peter Brown. We're going to read a few chapters today. And yesterday or Friday we read chapter 1, just chapter 1. So now we are on chapter 2, The Crate. Woof, woof, woof. Inside the farmhouse, a dog was barking and scraping at the front door. When the door finally opened, the dog scurried out and bounced down the porch steps. And then a man appeared. The man walked with a limp and slowly made his way down to the crate where his dog was sniffing around. He unlatched the top of the crate and it swung open on its hinges. Packing foam was tossed aside, restraining cords were unfastened, and there was Razum, Unit 7134. Her lifeless body sparkled in the late day sun. The man reached down and pressed an important little button on the back of the robot's head. Click. I hope some of you have a connection and remember who clicked her button in the first book. So she's clicked. Chapter 3, The Robot. The robot's computer brain booted up and her programs began coming online. Then she automatically stood, stepped out of her crate, and started to speak. Hello, I am Razum, Unit 7134, but you may call me Raz. While my robotic systems are activating, I will tell you about myself. Once fully activated, I will be able to move and communicate and learn. Simply give me a task and I will complete it. Over time, I will find better ways of completing my tasks. I will become a better robot. When I am not needed, I will stay out of the way and keep myself in good working order. Thank you for your time. I am now fully activated. Chapter 4, The Family. Welcome to Hilltop Farm, Roz. My name is Mr. Sharif. You belong to me now. Roz studied the man with her softly glowing eyes, and in a robotic voice, she said, Hello, Mr. Sharif. This old fella here is Oscar. Mr. Sharif scratched his dog's head. You won't see much of him. Oscar spends most of his time sleeping in the house. Hello, Oscar, said the robot. A goofy grin stretched across the dog's face, and he let out a happy yelp. Mr. Sharif pulled a small computer from his pocket. He tapped the screen and brought up a map of Hilltop Farm. There you are, Roz, he said as the robot's electronic signal appeared on the map. You'll be working all over this farm, and now that you're in the system, I can always see right where you are. What would you like me to do? Said Roz. You can start by putting your crate in the garage over there. I'll hold on to it in case I ever have to send you back to the factory. Clearly, Roz was designed to take orders, because her body automatically did as it was told. She stuffed the packing material into her crate and carried it into the garage. When Roz returned, Mr. Sharif was watching a school bus winding along the country road. Oscar barked and dashed off as the bus came to a stop at the bottom of the driveway. A girl and a boy jumped out and the bus drove on. In their matching school uniforms, the children looked almost identical. Identical means exactly the same, like identical twins look not exactly the same, but pretty much the same. But the boy was a little taller and the girl's hair was a little longer. They meandered up the driveway and romped around with their dog until they noticed Roz. A robot, said the girl, running up. It's about time we got one, said the boy. She's refurbished, said the man. She's the cheapest one I could find, but she'll make a decent farmer. Refurbished. Everyone say that word, refurbished. Refurbished means that something was broken, you fix it again so it works. So just like Roz was broken at the island and they fixed her up to be back, they kind of reset her to be back in the normal. So you might buy a refurbished iPad that used to be used, it broke, somebody fixed it, and now it's refurbished. What's her name? Said the girl. She said her name's Roz. That's just her starter name, said the boy. We can give her any name we want. Let's call her Farm Bot. I kind of like the name Roz, said the girl. Me too, said Mr. Sharif. Let's leave her name as it is, Roz. I'd like you to meet my daughter, Jaya, and my son, Jad. Hello, Jaya and Jad, said the robot. The children looked at each other and smiled. Will Roz take orders from me, asked Jad. What about me, asked Jaya. She'll take orders from both of you. Roz, I order you to do my homework, said Jaya. Don't waste your time with nonsense, Mr. Sharif grumbled. Roz is here to do farm work, not homework, you understand? The children nodded. Now I order you kids to bring the dog inside and go do your own homework, said Mr. Sharif. I need to show Roz the farm. We're going to just read one more chapter today. Chapter 5, The Farm. Mr. Sharif turned and shouted, Come here, Rambler! A moment later, a pickup truck automatically rolled out from the garage. The truck pulled up to the man and the robot. Its doors opened wide, and they both climbed in. Rambler had a steering wheel, but Mr. Sharif sat back and let the truck drive itself. They followed the driveway behind the house, across the backyard, past trees and hedges, and suddenly they were surrounded by farm buildings. The buildings were different sizes and shapes, all white walls with gray roofs, and they were so tightly packed together that you could hardly tell where one building ended and the next one began. Some were spattered with mud. Others had holes and loose boards. The entire place smelled like grass and manure. Mr. Sharif pointed out each building to Roz. There was the enormous dairy barn, the milking parlor, the workshop, the machine shed. Smaller sheds were scattered all around. Rambler drove out from the buildings and down the backside of the hill into a wide sweep of farmland. A fence lined this part of the driveway, and behind the fence was a sprawling, rolling pasture, lush with tall grass and a few leafy trees where a herd of cows was grazing. The cows swished their tails and chewed their cud and followed the truck with their eyes. One of them let out a long moo. This is a dairy farm, said Mr. Sharif. So these cows are the queens around here. Your whole world now revolves around them. Understand? I understand, said Roz as she stared at a young calf who was staring right back at her. They rolled past the herd of cows, past clumps of wildflowers, past a quiet pond, past birds, and field mice and bumblebees. The driveway cut through a row of trees on its way out to the crop fields, which were flat and square and covered with bright green sprouts. Hilltop Farm was bursting with life, but it had seen better days. Patches of weeds and bare dirt were spreading across the fields. Broken down farm machines and piles of junk were strewn across the grounds. Thick tangles of brush were creeping in from the edges of the property. They drove all the way out to the farthest fields, to a little roundabout at the very end of the driveway. Rambler shut off its engine, and the man and the robot sat and looked at the countryside. Far off, where the land met the sky, a train quietly slid along its tracks and disappeared to the north. Then all was still. This farm needs help, said Mr. Sharif at last. It's been in my family for generations, and I don't want to lose it. But I can't do farm work anymore, not with this bad leg. That's why you're here. They say Roslyn robots can learn to do almost every kind of job, and you'll have to do almost every kind of job on this farm. I understand, said Roz. We've had auto machines for ages, Mr. Sharif went on, but we didn't need a robot until my wife died. Those last words hung in the air for a while. The silence was finally broken by a low rumble of thunder. A storm was approaching. Tornado season was still months away, but in farm country, any storm could become dangerous. Let's go home, said Mr. Sharif. Rambler started its engine and drove back up the long driveway. By the time they reached the farm buildings, a steady rain was falling, and the cows were in the barn. "This is for you," said Mr. Sharif, and he handed Roz her own computer. "That controls the farm's equipment, and it's got all the information you need to work here. Do you know how to use a computer?" "Yes, I know how to use a computer." Roz had never used a computer before, but she instinctively knew what to do. Instinctively, say that word, instinctively. There might be a word that you've heard before in there, instinct. An instinct is something that you just know how to do. Nobody has to teach you. So like if someone jumps out and scares you and you go, "Ah!" No one had to teach you to scream and jump back. It's just your instinct to jump back when there's something that's scary. So when she says that she knows how to use a computer instinctively, it means that she just knows. She didn't have to learn. Clearly, the robot was designed to work with technology. "Study up tonight and start farming tomorrow," said Mr. Sharif. "You can stay in the machine shed with the other machines." "Perhaps I should stay in the barns." "Perhaps I should stay in the barn with the cows," said Roz. "My whole world now revolves around them." The man smirked and he said, "I like the way you think, Roz." And we are going to stop there for today. Tomorrow we will read chapter 6 and keep reading from there. All right, second graders. So my question for you today is, in this book, The Wild Robot Escapes, they're in a world that in some ways is similar to ours, in some ways it's like our world, and in some ways it's different from our world. So I want you to think about what are some of the things that you've seen that are the same as our world, and what are some things that are different? What are some hints that this story takes place maybe in the future or in a different world? To help you do that, I want you to make a Venn diagram. You know how to do this because we did this a bunch in class before our schools closed. So I want you to draw two really big circles, make them really, really as big as you can, that overlap in the middle. And on one side, you're going to write things about our world. So things that you see in the book that our world has, and some things that you notice about Roz's world. And the things that are the same would go in the middle. So for example, in our world, we don't have robots that can help us with projects yet. So you would write no robots here. In Roz's world, there's robots. So you would write there are robots. But in the middle, there's some things that we both have in common. So for example, in our world, we have farms. And in Roz's world, there's farms, right? She's working on a farm. So try to fill out at least 3 things on each side and 2 things in the middle. You can, of course, always have more, but try to do at least 3 on each side, 2 in the middle. When you have yours finished, you can either have your parent take a picture and send it to me on Class Dojo, or they can text it to me, or you can take a picture and post it on our Google Classroom. And I would also just love to hear if you're liking the book so far, or any questions you have. If you heard a word that you don't know what it means, please ask. And I can't wait to keep reading tomorrow. Thanks. Bye, everyone.